Our film starts with an ex-skating champion called Sofia who held the title of world champion 3 times. We notice that Sofia is a blind girl as she lost her sight at the last competition while skating after falling. We see her gathering her clothes and trying to quietly leave the house without anyone noticing because she wanted to feel normal again and have a job like any normal person. However, when she opens the door, her mother sees her and asks where she's going. Sophie gets nervous and tells her she's starting a pet sitting job for a wealthy family and needs to leave now because the car is waiting outside. Her mother didn't want her to leave, but she lets her go even though she was worried about her. On the way, her mother calls to check on her and tells her she sent her an important app to download that will help her with the daily task by having a video call with random person who can see to guide her in case she needed help. Sophie pretends the signal is bad and hangs up on her. She arrives at the house where she will work and is greeted by Deborah, the owner, who tells Sophie she's leaving immediately and instructs her about the house and her cat before she goes. Sophie puts a smart collar with a speaker linked to her phone on the cat to know its location. She then calls her friend Cam, opens the camera and shows him the house. Cam describes the house to her. Sophie starts memorizing the layout of the house. She then enters a room filled with expensive drinks. She shows a bottle to Cam and asks him to Google its price. Turns out it costs $4,000. Sophie decides to steal a glass, but Cam stops her saying he won't help her in that and asks her to return it. She refuses and hangs up on him. After a while, Sophie sits in her room and checks her messages. She checks the app that her mother sent to her. It's called See For Me, a new application for the blind that connects via video call to a sighted helper to assist with anything they need. Sophie was upset for stealing from the house. She grabs her cigarettes and goes for a smoke. When Sophie leaves her room, Deborah calls her to ask her to activate the house security system. Sophie does activate it. Later, she goes out to smoke a cigarette, but when she tries to get back in, the door won't open because of the security system. She tries to call Cam, but he doesn't answer. At that moment, Sophie decides to download the app and call someone named Kelly to help her. Kelly opens a video call and asks her to move around the area until Sophie reaches the back door of the house. Sophie successfully opens it following Kelly's instruction, but the alarm sounds. She quickly enters to shut it off, accidentally knocking over things on the floor on her way to the alarm system. She manages to deactivate it and thanks Kelly before ending the call. Later that night, Sophie forgets to activate the security system and goes to sleep. A gang breaks into the house knowing Deborah is away. Sophie wakes up alarmed by the motion sound and starts looking for the cat. The criminal Ernie senses her presence and starts searching for her. Sophie realizes he's aware of her presence and tries to escape, accidentally knocking over a vase, confirming Ernie's suspicion that someone is in the house. Sophie hides and calls the police, giving them her address. They reassure her and tell her they will help. Sophie stays on the line with them and tries to call Cam again, but he doesn't answer. She then uses the app to call Kelly, very scared, and tells her what's happening. Kelly tries to help her figure out how to escape the house, but one of the gang members spots her, grabs her, and ends the call with Kelly. When Ernie realizes Sophie called the police, he decides to kill her because she saw their faces. He tells his boss, who is now aware of the situation. Sophie cries and tells them that she hadn't seen anything as she is blind. The gang wants to leave before the police arrive, but also wants the money. Sophie negotiates with them, promising to let them leave peacefully if they give her a share of the money and ensure no one harms her. In return, she will help them lose the cops. They agree and she calls the police and tells them she misunderstood the situation and that no one broke in. However, the police tells her that an officer is on the way to ensure her safety. The gang members get anxious, but Sophie tells them she will help them hide. Meanwhile, Kelly reaches Sophie's location and calls the police about everything she saw. After a while, the police officer arrives and Sophie tries not to open the door, telling her that Deborah, the homeowner, instructed her not to open it for anyone. The officer assures her she will handle it if Sophie doesn't. Sophie opens the door. She explains to the officer that she mistook the sound of the television for someone breaking in. The police officer searches the house and notices that Sophie is nervous and reluctant to enter the rooms. Before leaving the house, the officer's phone rings and it's one of the gang members calling. Sophie tells the officer that it's her phone. The officer hands Sophie the phone, and when she answers, Sophie pretends to talk to someone named Kem and quickly hangs up. Just before the officer leaves, she receives a call from the police department informing her that Kelly reported a gang in Deborah's house. The officer re-enters the house and suddenly Ernie appears and surrenders. When Sophie tells the officer there are two others, one of them attacks the officer and strangles her to death. At that moment, Sophie grabs the officer's gun and escapes from the house. She calls Kelly to describe the way, but Kelly warns her that with the snowy ground, the gang will track her footprints and kill her. Kelly advises her to return home until the police arrive. When Sophie returns to the house through the back door, she slips and falls to the ground, accidentally dropping the gun. Ernie hears her and starts looking for her with a knife. As Ernie gets closer to Sophie, ensuring her that he won't harm her, Kelly sees him on camera and instructs Sophie to aim the gun at him and shoot when she realizes he has a knife. Sophie shoots him and he dies. Afterwards, Sophie moves before anyone else can kill her. Suddenly, she hears a noise coming towards her, so Kelly tries to direct her, but the connection is weak. Sophie starts shooting randomly until she kills the intruder who entered. Afterwards, Sophie rests and Kelly reassures her, informing her that only one person remains to deal with. Sophie collapses, realizing that she made a deal with the criminals to take a portion of the money in exchange for not reporting them. She now feels guilty for the death of the police officer. Kelly tells her to deal with the last criminal before her phone dies. Sophie confronts the criminal who opens the safe. When she fires a shot at him, it doesn't hit him. The criminal asks her to let him go and tells her that the safe is open and she can take the money she wants. Sophie's phone dies, and taking advantage of the opportunity, the thief takes money from the safe. He tries to escape and grabs Ernie's gun from the ground, but Sophie senses him and kills him. When she hears the phone ringing, Sophie answers it and discovers that it's the gang leader checking on what happened. She informs him that the safe is open and he needs to come to collect the money. After a while, the gang leader arrives at the house and discovers that the entire gang is dead. He calls out to Sophie, sensing that she might be planning to eliminate him too. He offers her a share of the money, claiming she deserves it as his partner. But Sophie doesn't believe him and cuts off the electricity in the house. However, he switches on a flashlight and begins searching the entire house for her. When he enters the room where she is hiding, she knocks over a glass to distract him. He continues shooting randomly until a bullet hits her leg. Sophie crawls on the ground, grabs a phone from one of the dead gang members, opens it, and calls the gang leader. As soon as he answers, she realizes he is standing behind her and shoots at him. But the bullet misses. He gets over her and tries to strangle her to death. She touches the glass wine bottle, grabs it, and hits him with it. He drops down fainted, and she starts hitting him with the bottle until he dies. Days pass and Sophie moves to the hospital. When she is discharged, she uses a wheelchair due to the gunshot wound in her leg. She learns from her mother that the gang leader was Deborah's ex-husband, and despite all the gang members being dead, the money was stolen from the safe. No one knows who the real thief is, and it is revealed that Sophie was the one who stole the money, and no one doubts it because to them she was the blind poor victim who took out 4 criminal men. She tells her mother that she would get back to skating. Later, we see her skating with her friend Cam. She calls Kelly and tells her that she is now happy to practice the one thing she spent her life doing and loving. Sophia starts a new life thanks to the money she stole. And that's the end of our movie. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments what you would like to see in the next film. Peace out!